Look, if Bob Ezrin is legendary, then Eddie Kramer is equally as legendary. Rock and Roll Over is a great album to me. I think it's a great follow up to Destroyer. I definitely think the House of Cards is building and building and building. If you keep building on a house of cards, sooner or later it's going to collapse. And to me, you can clearly see that they're building and they're building and everything's getting bigger and for that matter everything's getting better and it builds up
And
into
egos are getting bigger and bigger
that's
and bigger.
right.
Yeah.
And it builds up until Peter leaves the band, the elder, and that to me is where the house of cards collapses. I think it's a shame because we know that drugs and alcohol and egos contributed to their downfall, but if they could have contained the drugs, contained the alcohol, and contained the ego and not came out with the elder, and they would have gotten away with Dynasty. There's no doubt in my mind they would have gotten away with Dynasty. And they would have gotten away with Unmasked. If you go Dynasty Unmasked, skip the Elder, go to Creatures of the Night, and the four of them are still together, my God. I mean, as big as they became or as legendary as they are today, I think you can multiply that by 10.
What's interesting though is, and it actually makes me laugh, being that we're on what our sixth album, we're going to go into the seventh album, not counting the Alive album, right? What's funny to me, and then I have another quick one after this. What's funny to me is how did they get so many things right on that first album? Because the first, right, we go back to that first album, 6 out of 10, right? We said 6 out of 10 songs were like legendary songs that carried with them their whole career, right? So we go back to that, and then the last thing I had to say is we have all these questions as Kiss fans. I wonder what happened here. I wonder what happened here. Why did we do this? Why? How many questions do you think they have of themselves at times when they look back and they're like, we really should have Peter do this. Or we really, they must go crazy with that stuff.
It's a good question. I mean, your first question, I can, I don't know that I can answer it, but I have an opinion on it.
Yeah, I want it. What do you got?
Yeah, but it's not like I'm coming up with anything original. They had their entire life to write the first record, especially when you're Kiss. You are churning out records in record time. I
Right.
mean, they were putting out two records a year on an average at this time. So it's not like nobody's spending a year working on a song. Like these guys were kicking these songs out one by one by one. Some of the songs on the first Kiss record, Paul Stanley wrote when he was in high school. So he's got years to refine it. They don't have years to refine anything at this point. Casablanca needs them to put out a new record.
Right. No,
You know,
it's a good way of putting it.
I mean, everybody forgets, I shouldn't say that. Some people forget that Destroyer did not come out of the gate sprinting. It took a little time to build it up, which is probably part of the reason why Rock and Roll Over is it's musically a different kind of record. It's a Kiss record,
Absolutely.
but
Absolutely.
it's musically a little different, a little bit of a different kind of record. And I have a feeling that part of the reason for that is because they're looking at Destroyer sales, and you gotta put all these pieces together. They probably went into the studio to record Rock and Roll Over, and maybe Beth hadn't come out as a single yet. It wasn't launched which is an overused word by me when it comes to this, but it hadn't launched yet. And they went in a little bit different of a direction. And then Beth comes out as a single, Destroyer launches. And look, it's great that they followed it up with Rock and Roll Over. And I think all in all, they're good songs. They're not overproduced. There's a different sound to them. It's just a good all around follow up record. It's something. Well, nobody will ever accuse them of, oh, that was Destroyer 2. No one would ever accuse them of that.
Again, every one of these albums that they put out have a different flair to them. And overall, I mean, like I said, I like most of the songs on all these albums, but it's, again, every time we finish this, I say the same thing. This is a lot of fun for us. We going back and diving into these songs that we grew up with.
And sitting down and discussing them at our age, it's a different take than it was in my 20s or my 30s.
100%.